The first warning was not a scream, a broken lock, or a bloodstain. It was a faint odor drifting through the air-conditioned corridors of a mansion that was supposed to represent a new beginning. The smell was persistent but difficult to identify. Layla blamed the kitchen, then the drains, then the plumbing. In the first weeks of her marriage, explanations were easier to accept than the possibility that something was seriously wrong. On the morning of March 4th, 3 weeks after her husband left for what he called a business trip to Riyadh, Layla followed the odor toward a hallway she had been explicitly forbidden to enter. At the end stood a door that was slightly open. Beyond it was a room kept at an unnatural temperature, colder than the rest of the mansion by design. In the center sat an industrial chest freezer nearly 2 meters long, made of steel and large enough to belong in a commercial facility rather than a private residence. The smell intensified as Layla approached. A padlock hung open from the latch. She lifted the lid and saw that the freezer contained no food. To understand why Layla was standing in that room, the story had to be traced back 11 months, to the wedding that introduced her to one of Dubai's most powerful men. The ceremony had become a major social event. Roughly $2 million were spent over 3 days. One of the city's most exclusive hotels was transformed with white orchids, candlelight, and elaborate decorations. The guest list drew people from Gulf business circles and established wealth. Food was flown in from 4 countries, at a cost exceeding what many people earn over an entire decade. At the center of the celebration was Sheikh Rashid Al Karimi. He was 44, tall, controlled, and accustomed to influence. He owned properties on 3 continents. His name appeared on charitable foundations. He dressed with precision, spoke in a measured tone, and carried himself like a man who expected rooms to adjust around him. Deals, people, and outcomes seemed to move according to his decisions. Layla met him 6 months before the wedding at an art gallery opening in Dubai's financial district. She had arrived with a friend. Rashid approached her directly and offered an opinion about the painting she was viewing. His interpretation impressed her, and the conversation continued. 3 weeks later, flowers arrived at her apartment. Rashid had somehow obtained her address without her giving it to him. Layla told her friends the gesture was romantic. The relationship accelerated rapidly because Rashid wanted it to. Within 2 months, they were engaged. A wedding date was selected before Layla had met most of the people in his personal life. Whenever she asked about his family, Rashid said his parents were dead and that he had become estranged from nearly all other relatives. He described himself as private and selective about the people he allowed close. Questions about his past produced no clear answers. He redirected them smoothly, answering one question with another until the subject changed before Layla fully realized it. There were warning signs, but each was softened by the intensity of the courtship. The ring was real. The flowers arrived every morning. The wedding was genuine. Layla accepted the relationship as a carefully guarded private life rather than a constructed deception, and she married him. The mansion stood inside one of Dubai's most heavily secured residential compounds. Gates, guards, and surveillance cameras surrounded the property. Before the wedding, Layla had visited twice, but only under Rashid's supervision. He showed her the kitchen, the garden, the master bedroom, and the view over the water. Every tour followed the areas he had chosen. After the marriage, the house felt different. 3 long-term employees worked there. They were courteous, but their politeness had the rigid quality of people following instructions. They answered questions without volunteering information. Conversations seemed to stop whenever Layla entered a room, not abruptly, but with careful control. She was told that 3 parts of the property were off-limits. One was a utility passage on the ground floor. Another was a basement room beside the garage, identified only as storage. That room required a code she was never given. Layla did not initially challenge the restrictions. The mansion was enormous, Rashid was secretive, and she was still adapting to a life that appeared luxurious in every visible respect. Then Rashid began traveling more frequently. His trips lasted several days, and sometimes an entire week. Layla remained inside the house with employees who monitored her movements, and in a neighborhood where she knew almost nobody. Her isolation became more obvious as time passed. Few people called her because almost no one outside the household had been given her phone number. The odor began during the 3rd week. At first, Layla noticed it near the kitchen and mentioned it to a staff member. She was told that the problem would be investigated. Nothing changed. About a week later, the smell seemed to have shifted, or Layla had finally followed it toward the forbidden ground floor corridor. During a video call, she asked Rashid about it. He paused before suggesting a drainage problem. He said someone would examine it after he returned. His manner remained calm, and within half a minute he had moved the conversation to another subject. Layla allowed the explanation to stand, but the odor remained. It became stronger, more deeply embedded in the hallway. For 4 nights, she slept badly. By the morning she entered the restricted area, the smell no longer resembled a plumbing problem. She had searched the internet at 3 in the morning for descriptions of the odor. The results left her with a conclusion she did not want to accept. The staff members were away that day. Rashid was still traveling. At approximately 11 a.m., Layla walked toward the hallway in full daylight, having spent the night convincing herself that the source would be something ordinary: damaged pipes, a dead animal, or a mechanical problem that could be repaired. The door at the end was not fully closed. Layla could not tell whether it had been left open or had drifted that way. She pushed it inward. The temperature dropped as she entered. Near the freezer, the room became mechanically cold, maintained at a deliberate level over an extended period. The steel chest unit stood about chest high. The padlock was no longer securing it. Layla remained in front of the freezer for several minutes. Then she raised the lid. Inside was the body of a young woman, apparently in her mid-20s or possibly younger. The cold had preserved the remains. The body was positioned with unnatural stillness, arranged rather than collapsed. Layla did not scream. Instead, she lowered the lid, sat on the floor, and experienced what she later described as a silent internal breakdown. As she remained in that cold room, a memory surfaced. 2 months after moving into the mansion, Layla had been unpacking books in the study. Between 2 volumes, she found a photograph. It showed a young, dark-haired woman standing in the garden of the house and smiling toward the person holding the camera. She looked comfortable there, as if the property had once belonged to her world. Layla had shown the picture to Rashid. He took it from her without examining it closely and said the woman had been a former employee who no longer worked for him. His tone made clear that the subject was closed. Layla accepted the explanation because she was still learning which questions Rashid would answer and which questions he would erase. Now, beside the freezer, she understood that the woman in the photograph was the body in the room. Layla left the basement and began searching the mansion methodically. She returned to the study and examined the built-in shelves. Behind a concealed panel, hidden imperfectly but effectively enough to escape casual discovery, she found a box. Inside were 3 passports. 2 carried Rashid's photograph under different names. A third appeared to belong to another person, but a biographical document connected that identity to an address Rashid had mentioned months earlier. The box also contained printed financial records and a collection of news articles from Arabic and English language sources. Many were missing person reports. The dates covered 7 years. Photographs showed multiple women, some unfamiliar to Layla. One photograph was not unfamiliar. It showed Layla herself, apparently taken before Rashid had approached her at the gallery. Before their first conversation, he had already obtained an image of her. She had not been discovered by chance. She had been researched, evaluated, and selected. Layla returned every item to its original position. Her hands remained steady, not because the danger had disappeared, but because fear had given way to concentration. She understood that an impulsive response could place her directly in Rashid's reach. She did not immediately contact local police. The compound was guarded. The staff were loyal to Rashid. Communications inside the mansion might be monitored or intercepted. A panic call could alert him before authorities understood what was happening. Layla needed evidence outside the house. She retrieved a tablet kept inside her suitcase. The device was not connected to the mansion's network. Using it, she composed a detailed message describing the body, the restricted room, and the freezer. She photographed the passports, records, and articles with her personal phone, transferred the images to the isolated tablet, and sent the material to 3 destinations: her sister in London, a lawyer whose contact card she had preserved for years, and an emergency crimes inbox associated with Interpol. Then she activated a voice recording on her phone and left it running. 2 hours later, Rashid called. His voice sounded warm and composed. He said the business trip had gone well and that he expected to return the following evening. He asked how Layla was managing. She told him she was fine. She said she had spent most of the day inside and that the house felt unusually quiet. Rashid paused for a fraction of a second. It was the kind of hesitation she might not have noticed earlier in the marriage. Then he said he would see her the next day. He returned that night at 11:45 p.m. Layla heard the entry code being entered and the lock's release. She waited in the sitting room with the lights on, the recording device still active inside her pocket. Rashid walked through the main door with his jacket on and the controlled confidence of a man who believed every space belonged to him. He sat opposite her. He did not ask about her day. He did not inquire about the property or the household. Instead, he studied her for an extended moment with an expression that fell somewhere between a smile and a threat. Then he said that she had been busy. Layla remained silent. Rashid said he did not blame her for being curious. He explained that the dead woman in the freezer had left him no alternative. According to him, she had made promises, broken them, issued threats she did not understand, and created a problem that had required a permanent solution. He described the murder as if he were discussing an inconvenience. Rashid told Layla that she was different. He suggested she still had an opportunity to be intelligent and avoid the fate of the other woman. His language assumed that he retained control of the room and of the woman sitting across from him. 6 hours earlier, Layla's message had reached the emergency inbox. Authorities had read it, verified the photographs and documents, and matched the information against a cold case file that had remained open for 3 years. Dubai Police's Criminal Investigation Department coordinated with Interpol liaison officers, and the response was accelerated. At 12:07 a.m., the compound gate opened. The vehicles did not originate inside the property. 4 Dubai police vehicles entered together, followed by 2 Interpol liaison officers. Rashid heard them approach and rose from his seat. He looked toward Layla. She told him that she had made one move before he returned. Officers entered through the front entrance, the side access point, and the utility entrance at the same time. Rashid did not flee. Even as restraints were placed around his wrists, he continued performing the image he had maintained for years: the composed sheik, the powerful businessman, the man who controlled everyone around him. At 1:15 a.m., investigators opened the freezer and removed the body. The forensic examination of the mansion continued for 72 hours. Evidence recovered from the property connected Rashid to 4 additional missing women. 3 victims were from the Gulf region. 1 was from Eastern Europe. Their disappearances stretched across nearly a decade. Fingerprint records established that Rashid Al-Karimi was not his real name. The man presented as a wealthy sheik had used 3 previous identities, entered 2 earlier marriages, and was wanted under another name through an Interpol red notice. The name known throughout Dubai belonged to a persona he had built deliberately. He had never been a sheik. The properties, charitable associations, invitations, status, and reputation had all been assembled to create authority. Rashid understood that visible wealth could discourage scrutiny. Expensive furniture, secured compounds, influential acquaintances, and a carefully polished public image made people less likely to ask where the money came from or who stood behind the name. He had relied on that perception for years. What he had not anticipated was Layla's response after finding the freezer. She had not run blindly into the hallway. She had not confronted him without protection. She had sat down, assessed the danger, copied the evidence, contacted people outside his network, and created a record that could survive even if she did not. Layla testified 18 months later. Rashid was convicted on multiple charges across 2 jurisdictions. The families of the women whose disappearances had remained unresolved finally received answers. The mansion was seized. Its gates closed permanently. The wealth did not survive as Rashid intended. Neither did the identities, the reputation, or the illusion of a powerful man whose private life was beyond examination. What remained was the evidence of a predator who had used status as camouflage and a woman who recognized that survival required more than courage. It required documentation, timing, and a message sent before the door opened. In the end, the most important object in the house was not the industrial freezer. It was the isolated tablet hidden in Layla's suitcase, the phone recording in her pocket, and the email that reached investigators before Rashid could erase the evidence or silence the person who found it. His greatest mistake was believing that fear would make Layla careless. Instead, it made her precise.